Who's next to you, Will? Oh, Sheila.
Oh, yeah,
I couldn't see his name down there. Good afternoon. I'm Tomas, Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, formerly known as Campus Life and Student Development. Yeah, this is always very uncomfortable for me because I facilitate this process, but I still have to get up here and present a budget to you. So I'm open to any suggestions for those of you that participated in this process. I think, already I can tell just in one day that it's more transparent and more equitable, but if this is something that people aren't comfortable with, I'm perfectly fine with changing this piece too. So understanding again that the Dean of Students, I have two jobs. One job is to oversee the third largest division on campus, Student Affairs, 16 functional areas, over 100 full-time staff, almost 500 student staff, a budget somewhere between $20 to $30 million, and then a Dean of Students position, which is really, the student advocate, crisis manager, SGA advisor, and so forth. Within my office, so you see dual functions. You see individuals like myself who are doing these two jobs, but then people like Stacy, who is not only supporting that office, but supporting the division. People like Tim, who are not only supporting that office, but supporting the financial needs of the entire division. Professional salaries has gone up, and I'll explain a little bit in a second why that's gone up a little bit. The fringe benefits are obviously a part of the salaries. Student wages, $35,000. Professional development is actually kind of low. It pays for all the professional development within the office, but my particular position is interesting because I do have professional development, but then I have these system requirements. So I am forced to attend the Chief Student Affairs Officer meeting, and I'm forced to attend to CUSPA and other statewide organizations. So we typically wind up pulling a little bit for this because it's just not enough to cover everybody. Then we have the operating costs of the office itself. And then this little piece down here, which is an emergency fund and an innovation fund. The emergency fund was something that existed prior to me arriving. It used to just be this emergency pot of money that whenever somebody needed help, they would come into my office, and then there was this expectation that I would just bail them out. Not comfortable with that. I lost more sleep over that process than I would a building being on fire or an off-campus party or something like that. So we completely changed that. Now students, they submit an application, it goes through a committee makes a recommendation, and then I either approve or disapprove it. This is two amounts. The emergency fund is $15,000 a year. No, I take that back. Flip it. It's 20, right?
35 and 15.
Say again?
35 for the emergency fund and 15.
No, 30 actually, if you look
30
at the website, yeah.
30.
30 for the emergency fund, so 15 per semester, and then $15,000 for an innovation fund. The innovation fund was an idea that I came up with last year. It was to put a group of seconds and thirds from student affairs into a committee to come up with something innovative that could support student success in a different way, and then pilot it for a year, and then have it go through the president's innovation process, which we're not going to continue this year because we're short on funds. So I'm going to make this really easy for you right off the bat. I think in the light of our current budget crisis, I feel very comfortable going to the innovation team and explaining to them that while they came up with a great idea, we need the $15,000 for something else that we can just then roll over to this upcoming year. We could eliminate the request for $15,000 for this upcoming year, and because we added $5,000 to that, we're really talking about $35,000, and if you were to cut my budget by 33%, it's $3,000 below the 33%. So then I would say, give me that $3,000 just to be nice, or if you want to find $3,000 from somewhere else, that's fine. But in other words, what I'm saying is that I'm more than happy, for the sake of the team and for the sake of where we're at right now, decreasing this overall budget by $35,000, and I would pull it out of this amount right here, just in case you're wondering. But let's go through it really, really quick. I've explained the top two. Operating, again, it's essentially just things that we need within the office. I talked a little bit about professional development. Student wages go for 2 undergrad, 1 grad. I really believe strongly in employing students. I think it's really important to provide opportunities for students to work. The students that work in our office are really students without this job. They wouldn't be able to go to school here. So being able to support 2 undergrads, and then our graduate student is actually an international student. So not only does he get paid to work in my office, but because of this job, he qualifies for in-state tuition. So he's getting kind of like a double bonus. And again, I've explained the 2 ways that the office supports the mission of the institution. But how much time do I have?
You're out of time right now.
Okay.
Let's go
So
to-
would someone please ask me about the increase in professional salaries? Yes, thank you. The increase in professional salaries is going to a caseworker. So Dr. Hendricks, before she retired, she recognized the need that students that are now coming to the institution are quite often experiencing what we would call multiple crises, okay? So it's not like they're just homeless, or they don't have food, or they don't have a job and they're living in their car, or they might be suffering from some sort of mental health related issue. We're seeing more and more students who need what we would call triage, okay? In the previous model, I would recommend someone to Rebecca. Rebecca would then refer them over to Dr. Patras, and then he might refer them over to housing. That doesn't work with these students anymore. These students have multiple crises going on, so we've gone to what we call a social worker model, a caseworker model. So we piloted this past year. We paid for it ourselves. We hired someone from the School of Social Work, and gosh, anybody who's worked with her knows that she's busy. So what she does is she's prepared essentially like a resource book, and then she works with these students who are the most critical within our community. Students that Dr. Patras couldn't support by himself, or Rebecca couldn't support by herself, or I couldn't support by myself as a dean of students, because they just have so much going on. And so that's where that increase came from, is to actually pay for this person's salary so we can continue this important program. It's a student caseworker.
Do we have a professional confirmation from Dr. Patras over there that this is the case?
Have a what?
A professional confirmation?
Ooh, so are you suggesting that what I just said wasn't professional?
No, I mean, it is.
Oh, okay, no.
This is a second opinion.
All right, oh, no, okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard what you were saying.
Did I get called
Considering
out?
I'm also
Did
a
you get called
doctor.
out for us? No, I,
Just say yes.
yes.
Put us both in our spot.
Tomas knows that I'm very territorial about the mental health aspect.
Sure.
For lots of reasons, in particular confidentiality issues. But the concept works. Having someone who has those resources that I don't have, and I'm not a trained social worker, so I don't know how to go out and find all those resources. That in one place is a great thing. I've referred my clients to Nikki because they needed things that I could not provide. So
She's not necessarily substituting
no.
in lieu of him. What she's doing is she's staying with that student from start to finish, because these students that are needing this triage, what we've learned is that if you don't stick with them from start to finish, they fall into the cracks. So she's not substituting what Rebecca does or what I do or what Dr. Patras does. She's literally just staying with them throughout the journey, because if you don't, they're gone.
She's providing a holistic treatment
Yes, ma'am.
perhaps as opposed to acute.
Well, there are students that are living in their cars and things like that she's helping.
Okay, and you said I was going to ask, how many students does this affect? You're saying she's busy all the time.
I mean, gosh, I would say just in the short time that she's been here, she's probably got 30 to 50 students on her caseload.
Wow.
Yeah, it's tough.
And that's a national model. That's something that's really advanced.
Right.
I didn't know what
Yes,
Their
sir.
operating costs are roughly $9,000 from the previous fiscal year. What accounts for that?
Mr. Willett?
I didn't realize it went up, and I thought we used the same amount of money we used last year for that.
Yeah, I think per your application here, FY17 is $21,275. FY18 is $30,000.
The only thing I can think of is that we may have some computers coming up, and then with the addition.
Oh yeah, we did get new computers, that's it.
With the addition of Nikki, I didn't know exactly what kind of supplies and other needs she might need, so.
We had to turn that closet that you're familiar with into an office.
And I know that we're quickly running out of money in our operating fund. So we probably needed just a little bit of an increase.
So are you looking, in the future, are you looking to hire more caseworkers?
I mean, I think
'Cause I feel like
my
30
practice has always been, you identify a problem, you come up with a solution, and then you see if it works, and you use data to sort of see if you need to tweak it or not. And if we do get to that point where this one caseworker is not capable of supporting the needs of our students, then at that point, you would probably look at a different model or a slightly modified model. The model that we used, or I created this model too at UNM, was creating an advocacy center. And then the advocacy center essentially has 2 or 3 caseworkers working in it. I don't think we're at that point yet, because still, most of the students she's seeing are residential students. But as that continues to grow, I would suspect that the need would increase as well. But I would never make that proposal unless I had the data to support it.
You mentioned that of what you would cut, the innovation fund. Do you have any argument to defend keeping the innovation fund?
Well, I think innovation is always important, because if not, you're just playing catch up all the time. I think innovation is, I think the way we work today, we work from a deficit approach. We're trying to, do 40 hours of work, we're trying to do 60, 70 hours of work in 50 hours of time. And so we're always just playing catch up. I would like to get to a point in life where we could do 35 hours per week and then spend 5 hours being innovative, like Google or, Microsoft or Tesla. And so I think the innovation is a great idea, theoretically in principle, because it gets us to try to work smarter instead of harder. But at the same time, I can't justify being innovative when we're talking about other people maybe losing their jobs. So I'm just trying to be, I hate to give it up, because I've seen this group meet and they've come up with some amazing ideas, but at this point there's not even a presidential innovation fund anymore. Dr. Keck is taking that back, so it doesn't even align anymore. So, and again, I feel like I'm obligated as the facilitator of this group to be able to role model. I'm proud of the fact I'm the first person who got up here and said, hey, give me less. Yes, I feel pretty good about that. Yeah. And I didn't even prepare this sheet. Tim did. So, yeah, I just.
The new mantra, give me less.
I just said it. I said, give me, what did I say? 55. I want to make sure I'm offering the right one. 35. Yeah, not 55. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, don't give up 55.
I see Stacy back there.
We've got about 2 more minutes. If you have any more questions for the dean.
Do you help the Indian Student Association with their Howard Fest annually? Do you help every year?
The DOS Emergency Fund, anybody can apply for it, and again, it's all online. What's different about this fund and other funds is it truly is an emergency fund. I think the most effective example of the emergency fund was when the 2 Indian students were held up at gunpoint last year. I think it was the end of last spring. And they just happened to have a lot of cash on them. And without that cash, they couldn't make rent, and they weren't going to get that money from anybody. And they came in, and we were able to replace the money that was stolen from them, and that made the difference between them staying or going home. So it's not much, but again, it's intended to help students when they're sort of in a crisis. And one way that we, Will and I actually came up with this is we don't allow them to double dip anymore, because what they used to do is just go to every fund on campus and pull. So now they're either pulling from this or they're pulling from the over-realized student service fee fund. But this is really intended just for individual students who just need a little help with something. And again, it goes through a committee. The committee has students on it, and I'm not playing that omnipotent role anymore like before, where I felt like Santa Claus and I just didn't like it.
So one of the things that we've asked in the previous,
What have you asked other people? 'Cause-
Well,
no, just kidding.
I'll tell you, ask. So I mean, for the casework, I think that's a really interesting, addition to this section of campus. But have you looked into federal grants? Have you looked into state grants?
Absolutely, she's doing that right now.
Okay, so she's doing that right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Nikki Barnett. Yes, if we can get it, they, like I had mentioned earlier, they're looking into a big Title IX grant right now that we were made aware of. Michelle Vieira, the Title IX officer, is coordinating that for us, and some of that funding actually might be able to go to this office, so, yeah.
Okay, we're out of
And whenever
time.
that happens, we're just gonna give it back.
Right.
Just
Out of time.
So Tim, I have a quick question. When it comes to people that we allot money to, and they don't use it, they just send it back, they roll it over,
It gets rolled over.
rolled over.
It gets rolled over. The president makes that final decision whether they roll student service fee funding over.
Right,
For the last 5 years, they have done that.
right,
Previous to 5 years ago, you had to request rollover money.
right.
But 5 years ago, Dr. Jones started that process. My guess is that they will roll funding this year because of the way the budget's looking for next year.
Right.
And it could be, for example, if we give $20,000 to a group, that's what they're anticipating their expenses to be, and maybe it comes in at